Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find us on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, as well as Instagram, TikTok, all the places at Hawk Blogger. And it's a Wednesday. And as much as everyone's talking about trades, and we will do that as well, it's time for First Look. We are going to dive deep into our matchup this week between the Seahawks and the Cardinals, and we bring back good pal Bo Brack of PHNX Sports down there in Arizona to give us a look at a team that's going through some transition. Bo, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I mean, fresh off of kind of the official end, I think, of the Kyler Murray era. After, we're 7 seasons into this thing, Jacoby Brissett has outright won this job and is QB1 going forward. So it's a new day. It's interesting after covering this team and Kyler for so long. It's a bit strange as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most undercovered trade made during the trade deadline week, where Arizona, sounds like the coach, Jonathan Gannon, said even if Kyler Murray was healthy, the decision's been made to move to Jacoby Brissett as their new starter. Talk to us about what your reaction was to that news.
Yeah, you know what? This was a bit of we saw it coming, right? This was pretty transparent. Their blinker was on for a while. And this went from a soft benching to just a all out, downright definitive benching for Kyler Murray. And, they can continue to do it under the guise of the foot injury. This is a player, Brian, who's been practicing for the last 3 weeks in a limited capacity. I've been out there and, he looks for the most part like Kyler Murray. And I know this is like a Liz Frank type injury to where it could escalate. It could get, to the point where it could be season ending. But I think Jacoby Brissett's play, the Cardinals' struggles overall, and, Kyler Murray in this offense not being as productive as it is with Jacoby Brissett, all those played into let's take our time with this and now just straight pivoting to Brissett. So now it becomes a little bit of a damage control as far as Kyler Murray. How can you keep him an asset to where once the offseason comes that you can maybe get something of return, get out from under that contract a little bit. Still, you're going to endure a lot of dead cap there, but not something that they can't manage. But I think that becomes kind of the goal going forward. I think we've seen the last of Kyler Murray as far as starting, this quarterback for this team, and struggled mightily against, the team that's coming up for him, the Seahawks. And it's really unfortunate because he was a player with a skill set that's fun to watch. And I think there's going to be some narratives that he's not going to be able to debunk, even though I think they're false and they're unfair. This just came down to Kyler Murray wasn't the fit for this offense, and maybe he can go be a fit elsewhere. But unfortunately, after 7 seasons, it looks like it's going to come to an inevitable end.
Yeah, 7 seasons. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And partly because, his stature and whatever, he just seems so young still in this whole process. But I'm curious, Bo, was there any conversation about them trying to find a trade partner this season to move him along, or is that just something that's going to wait till after this season?
I mean, nothing beyond like what you could speculate. I wouldn't be shocked if that's something that was they explored, right? I think that they see the writing on the wall. I think the organization is just looking to move forward and find a different path at that position. But yeah, nothing definitively. But it's such an unprecedented move, even though we're seeing kind of a new era of NFL trade deadlines, where we saw all these big time moves, especially the Jets fire sale, which could be a potential landing spot for Kyler Murray, as early as next March. But with the contract, and there's no teams that are going to be looking to get into the quarterback business at this point. They're either going to say, hey, we can go to and turn to a rookie scale quarterback in the draft, and then not kind of take on that cumbersome deal, where I think the team that's going to acquire Kyler Murray would get the base salary of about $22 million. Do the Cardinals have to go Russell Wilson on this thing? I think teams are going to be more like, let's just wait and see. I don't think that there's any urgency from any teams out there that they would have given up assets and then taken on that contract. They would benefit more from being patient on this thing.
So, Bo, if this does signal the end, if Kyler Murray started his last game for the Cardinals, what's going to be your story for his time and tenure in Arizona?
Yeah. Looking back at it, I think you look at a lot of untapped potential with Kyler Murray. You also have, the big time storylines as far as the homework clause and this and that kind of followed him, video games, an uncharacteristic, size for the quarterback position. Getting to kind of cover Kyler, I think some of those are unfair. I think he's as competitive of a player as there is in the league. I think as far as the study habits, I think that's kind of something that is overblown. I think he puts in more than enough time. I think that it's just he endured some injuries. I think he played behind some bad offensive lines. I think he had to really kind of, in the beginning of his Cardinals career, overcompensate for lack of infrastructure organizationally and as far as the roster goes. And then when the pieces were in place like they were this year, I think they have a solid team, especially some components offensively. Just couldn't figure it out. He couldn't put it together and push the ball downfield that was necessary. Couldn't run this offense. So it's something that where it's just like you see the skill set and you're like, well, why didn't this translate to more wins? And I think that's really what you're going to look at, through the 7 seasons when it's all said and done. Was there some untapped potential? And then we'll find out. Like, is it a Geno Smith type situation, Sam Darnold situation? You guys know all too well as far as quarterbacks, their first couple stints, and then getting, the benefits of them having a career resurgence, renaissance of sorts. But that remains to be seen. It's just, you take them 1-1 and you see the skill set and you're like, man, this is going to be fun to watch. And you just never, outside of like a 7-week run in 2021, you don't really get to enjoy it as much. There was just a bunch of other things and variables that played into it not being successful.
So, Bo, as we kind of turn our attention to this matchup, I'm struck by all the differences. And we just talked about one of the major ones that's going to be with who's playing quarterback for the Cardinals. But the Cardinals had a winning record when these teams faced the first time. Both teams had dropped a game against the 49ers that they didn't think they should have lost. Neither team wanted to go to 0-2 in the division. And obviously the Seahawks came out and won that game. The Cardinals came back, tied it, but Seahawks ultimately won. What's been your perception of this Seahawks team, within the division since that time?
Just trending in the right direction. Offensively, defensively, I think you've seen them. The special teams was playing at a high level. I haven't kept many, tabs on the teams, but just watching that game on Sunday night, just watched a dominating performance. And I think Mike McDonald's defensive philosophies that he brought over from Baltimore are really kind of taking to this defense. And they were kind of, I think, ahead of schedule last year, and now they're just kind of really kind of tapping into what he wants. And then offensively, what you're seeing from Sam Darnold and JSN, and you're seeing them start to just kind of come alive. It's a team that can beat you in all 3 phases, and I think that they're solidifying themselves as a contender here in the conference, and that can't be overlooked or discounted. So we started to see like the beginnings of that in week 4, and I think that's just continued to trend that way. So this is a scary team. Like Gannon said it yesterday after talking about the quarterback, that this is probably the best defense they're going to face all season, and I don't think that's hyperbole.
Yeah, what gets your attention first when you look at the Seahawks team, and as far as what is something that's going to be tough to deal with?
The defensive front seven, the pressure, how they just kind of control the line of scrimmage. That's just it's been a big factor. That's been something that the Cardinals, even with Brissett and being more productive offense overall the last 3 weeks, it's still something that you can't get a run game going, establish that, and then Brissett is facing an immense amount of pressure, and he's been able to overcome it, but they're not setting themselves up for third and manageable. Like you are always facing on third down, even though Brissett's been in the Cardinals have been the best third down team in the league. It's been like from third and long. And, when you've got a defensive front that's more well-equipped than the Colts and the Packers and certainly Dallas pre-Quinn and Williams, even with Quinn and Williams, I'm sure that's not going to be the Band-Aid fix-all. This is going to be a team that's going to consistently going to be able to win up front. And that is a huge challenge for this Cardinals offense.
Yeah, and it's been interesting kind of getting into the Cardinals and seeing some of the differences, and I'm going to go over those in a little bit later. But, Jacoby Brissett has, by almost any measure, been a significantly better quarterback than Kyler Murray for this offense this year. And if you look, he only has a 1-2 record, but they lost by 4 points at Indianapolis, and we're ahead in that game. They lost by 4 points at home to the Green Bay Packers. They were ahead in that game.
Yeah.
And then they just beat the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that there's a risk of people looking at the record for the Cardinals and just dismissing them out of hand. But I look at the Cardinals and I'm like, all right, the offense is more reliable, lower variance, I would say, than it was with Kyler Murray. And you also now have a defense that is finally getting Walter Nolan, your first round pick, in there, played his first game against Dallas, finally getting Will Johnson in there at cornerback for a few games. I think I even saw Cody Simon, is that his name? The linebacker from Ohio State, getting some snaps and playing, I think, decently well against the Cowboys as well. And so you're starting to see the shape of a defense that I think is getting overlooked in the NFL.
I think any defensive metrics that you've seen for this Cardinals defense, they're nice, right? For quarters 1 through 3, Brian, like they're a top 10 defense. That's undeniable. Once they hit the fourth quarter, for whatever reason, like things fall apart. And I don't know if it's just because they lack aggressiveness, but was Walter Nolan the missing piece? I think that's very possible because you had some nice pieces, right? You added Josh Sweat, who was fantastic on Monday night, 2 more sacks. Calais Campbell continues to defy father time at 39 years old, 2 more sacks against the Cowboys. But you add this like really disruptive, violent player like Walter Nolan, and he's able to hit the ground running, which nobody anticipated against, Dallas's offense. Like, say what you want about the defense, but the offense is good. It's a good offensive unit. And they were able to just keep the pressure on Dak Prescott consistently. And I think also coupled with Walter Nolan arriving, Garrett Williams getting back in there. You guys
Garrett
know
Williams is huge.
Yeah, he is getting back in that normal, nickel slot corner position, and able to couple the rush and cover thing. It paid off big time for the Cardinals, to where you talk about, like, they set the NFL record for 3 consecutive games going into the fourth quarter with a 7 or more point lead and lost all 3 of those games. They were able to buck that trend on Monday. And I think when you've got defensive playmaking like from Walter Nolan and Garrett Williams into the equation with the group that was already there, it gives you a chance to get off the field like you didn't have necessarily, the previous couple of weeks during that 5-game skid.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest difference between this Cardinals team and previous Cardinals teams. I actually have more respect for this version of the Cardinals than I have for some of the previous versions that might have had better records, because this is a defense that you're not going to get a free ride against. For Seahawks fans who just watch play the Commanders, this is very, very different defensive staff and personnel than they just faced in Washington. And the offense now with Jacoby Brissett feels respectable enough that they're going to put up some points. They're probably not going to be the highest scoring team or the most electric team, but they're also not going to be making, a ton of mistakes down to down, series to series. So that's a formula that I think is going to allow the Cardinals to play spoiler the rest of the way. I don't think the playoffs are a realistic option for them and the way things have gone, but I think there's a chance that defense might establish itself as a young foundational unit that they can build around, and then they have to figure out the rest next year.
Yeah. That was the expectation going into the season. And then, the day training camp opens up, Walter Nolan's injuries announced. And that shouldn't be like the difference maker, but then they suffer key injuries to the secondary. But they were still a decent group, hovering around top 10, to start the season. And you've noticed like they haven't been blown out in any of the games. Like they won their first 2 games against 2, pretty poverty franchises. And then they went on this horrible 5-game losing skid where they lost by like a combined 13 points. So they're in every game, even the Seahawks game where that looked like it was going to be a laugher after the first half. They come back and they tie that game. So they've been in it and they scratch and claw. And I think with, reincorporating Garrett and then also adding Walter Nolan to the mix, it gives them a real good fighting chance week in and week out. And then it's going to come down like offensively. Can you do enough? Can you muster enough points? And we'll see. Like this is going to be the first test against a good defense. Like, can they be where they're scoring close to 26 points per game? Like if they have that defense and they can match their average on offense, like that gives them a chance against anybody in this league. And, did they dig themselves too much of a hole? I think that absolutely looks like the case with the Cardinals, but you're seeing it, as to your point, that they've built this thing the right way. They've drafted, they've developed. And I think that that's probably why, despite, an awful start to the season, like guys like head coach Jonathan Gannon and GM Monty Ossenfort, the rest of the season can make their case to see this thing beyond this year. And there were those, doomsday conversations a couple of weeks ago to where they've been able to kind of weather that, and people are starting to see it just with the addition of Walter Nolan having a tremendous debut.
Yeah, and the Walter Nolan thing for me is interesting in that, like, I got into it with at least some Cardinals fans this offseason when I said I wasn't super impressed with Darius Robinson last year, even when he came back. And they're like, well, he was injured and he's been killing it in training camp again. And I still don't see it this year. But Walter Nolan, it didn't take, 6 games or an off season. The first game you could see that this guy has potential. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to do that every single game, but I think elite talent shows itself pretty early. And where I think there was maybe a swing and a miss with Darius Robinson last year, I don't know if they hit a home run, but I think they certainly have at least a double and maybe have hit a home run with Nolan, and I think Will Johnson as well. So yeah, I love what I'm seeing from that draft class. And just to your point, one of the things that's interesting about the Cardinals between now and then, when the Seahawks first faced them, the Cardinals in their first 4 games of the season had never had over 300 yards of offense, had only scored more than 20 points once, and that was against the Panthers.
With a defensive score.
Yeah, exactly. In Jacoby Brissett's 3 starts, they've had over 330 yards of offense in every game and scored at least 23 points each time. Yeah. So they are, it's a different team. Now, one of the things I kind of wanted to get in with you is there's also sounds like there's some injury questions with Max Melton had a concussion in this game. I think that Mack Wilson Sr. had some ribs that took him out of this game. Yeah. Do you have any more insight into their availability for this game?
Yeah, Mack Wilson, that's going to be the one that kind of follow throughout the week, especially when they're coming off playing on Monday night. And, he tried to go, and everybody knows that when you have a rib injury, it's really, we'll see. With Max Melton, I think he's somebody that's going to make his way back. He hasn't had to deal with head injuries a whole lot in his young career. I think they should be pretty close to full strength in that defensive secondary. But outside of that, no, I mean, they're relatively healthy. And it bodes well for them to kind of maybe put together back-to-back defensive performances with them being at full strength there. But outside of that, no, I mean, outside of the general nicks and bruises that an NFL team is facing right now, Cardinals are in a decent shape just health-wise.
Yeah, so we're talking to Bo Brack of PHNX Sports down there in Phoenix. And Bo, for this game, this matchup, how do you see this turning out? Where do you see the advantages for both teams?
I mean, you see the advantages in the defensive trenches, as I pointed out, against this Cardinals offensive line that's struggling. Right tackle Jonah Williams continues to be a liability over there. just kind of a turnstile for, I don't care if it's Kyler Murray or if it's Jacoby Brissett. You don't even have enough time to evade the pressure coming on that side of the line. But what you've seen offensively is kind of what you anticipated when you drafted Marv 4th overall, what you liked from 3rd round pick Michael Wilson, a couple drafts ago. And, of course, Trey McBride continues to terrorize NFL defenses from the tight end spot. But you're starting to tap into those guys' potential downfield. Like the downfield aspect now, it's there in this offense. And I think that's going to put some pressure on the Seahawks defensive secondary. Like I think Marv is starting to find it finally in year 2. And then, as far as the defense goes, can they turn Sam Darnold in that Seahawks offense? Can they keep them one-dimensional? Can they force them into maybe just a pass-only, offense? That's what the Cardinals like to do, try to take the run game away, subdue Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet always seems to find the end zone against the Cardinals, even though one was a key callback in the last game. Maybe
that was a bad call, man.
Maybe it was a bad call. I don't know. I don't want to crush the refs for that, but maybe that was a difference maker. But yeah, if they can if they can kind of do what they did against Dallas and really kind of control the line of scrimmage from their standpoint and get some plays from turn the ball over. One thing I think the Seahawks have been able to avoid, even when they had the 4 turnover performance against the Texans, they were able to overcome that. And I think that was a testament to their defense too. But can the Cardinals take advantage of that? The turnovers still exist. Can they capitalize on those?
Last thing for you, Bo, and we're talking to Bo Brack from PHNX Sports. The Rashid Shaheed trade comes down. Yeah. When that was announced, I'm just curious, as someone who follows a team in the division, what was your reaction to that?
You know that he's got proof of performance under Kubiak. The Saints, it seems like forever ago, they opened up the season in 2024 as one of the hottest offenses in the league, and I think Derek Carr and Shaheed, they were a good combo, and that exists, and you couple that with JSN and what he's been able to do. It just adds another wrinkle to it. The one thing the Cardinals have been able to do is limit the big plays. I know you had one glaring one where JSN's able to, and Darnold are able to connect and put them in position to win that football game, 30-plus yarder. But, as far as passing big play passes, the Cardinals have been able to limit those for the most part. So I think they're well equipped to deal with it. But, what Shaheed gives you, I think for whatever team he's going to suit up for is that big play potential, and just adds another player that you're going to have to cover. I think the Cooper Kupp thing, he's been fine. You've got the other receivers in that receiving room, but they don't strike fear in the hearts of opposing defenses. They'll make their plays, but I think this is one where it's you have to account for them, and what's that going to open up for the existing problem in JSN.
Bo Brack of PHNX Sports, man, thank you for your time, and good luck the rest of the season. Not necessarily this week, but I think there's some better days ahead for the Cardinals. And honestly, as someone who follows this division closely, I think the Cardinals were always going to be limited with Kyler Murray as a quarterback. I think you probably see it a little differently, but I think that this at least gives them the chance to set a new ceiling, and I think this defense is on the right track. So good luck to you, and thanks for coming on as always.
Always, man. Looking forward to the next time.
All right. That is Bo Brack from PHNX Sports. Let's get that right. Always good stuff to catch up with Bo, and maybe a little bit down after what has been I think a bummer of a season for Cardinals fans who I think had high hopes. I'll tell you, if you were listening to me, I thought this division was going to come down to the Seahawks and the Cardinals. So I was wrong about the Cardinals. I fell for it. I've been the person in past years that was always like, you know what? Everyone's talking up the Cardinals. I don't see it. This year, because I didn't like their drafts the last couple of years, to be honest. I thought they absolutely blew the draft capital that they were given. Paris Johnson Jr. is fine at left tackle, but generally speaking, I did not like their drafts. And for the most part, that's turned out to be true. Max Melton has not been that good. Darius Robinson, I don't think is that good. I don't think he's a dynamic player. He's okay, but he's certainly not a first round pick caliber player. But this year, I think they might have done something. We'll see what happens with Walter Nolan. I think this guy could be a very disruptive defensive tackle. And then their secondary, Garrett Williams is already one of the top nickel backs in the NFL. Will Johnson looks like a shutdown corner. Their safeties have already been pretty good. And I actually like their third safety, D'Adrian Taylor Demerson, that probably won't get as much playing time now as he did in the first game against the Seahawks. But yeah, I like a lot of what's going on for them in terms of where they're going, but it's going to be rough this year. So I've got a ton of stuff. Like I have not yet had a chance to finish my tail of the tape. So that'll get published sometime today, but I do have all the data to share with you guys. So we'll go through some of that and I'll talk about some of the matchups. And I've also dug into the differences between Kyler Murray and Jacoby Brissett that, may not be obvious going into this. So we'll get into all of that. If you haven't already taken the time to give the show a like and click subscribe, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who's already subscribed. We crossed over 27,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which is great. Let's see if we can get to 30,000 by the end of the year. In fact, I'll do this. I'll say it right now. If we can get to 30,000 before the end of the year, I will give away 2 tickets to the next Seahawks home game, even if it's a playoff game. All right. So I will figure out a way to do that. So let's get to 30,000 subs over here on YouTube, and I will give away tickets the same way I did for the first game of the year against the 49ers. So on our way there. And if you haven't already taken advantage of this amazing deal over at SimplySeattle.com, now's the time to do it. Code HawkBlogger15 will get you 15% off your favorite Seahawks gear, Mariners gear, Huskies, Kraken, all that stuff is up there and available. So take advantage of it while you can. And then go over to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. I saw another person just got themselves a pair of boots just yesterday that they're going to love. You have to type this into your browser, jkboots.com/hawkblogger. That will get you your own special promo code that will absolutely give you the best deal you can get on the best boots you'll ever own. Washington-based company, fantastically crafted boots. I love my JK boots. In fact, I think I'm going to wear them to the VMAC today because it's a little bit of a rainy day, and they're kind of ass kicker boots. So you just want to be out there when it's a rainy day wearing your JK boots. Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app if you haven't already. Great place to check with your fantasy football, what's going on there, as well as real-time updates on all your favorite teams, whether it's NBA, NHL, or NFL. And right now, they're giving away $20 without even making a deposit. And if you use promo code Hawks, you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Check out Sleeper today. Okay. So let's go. I see someone saying that there's too many ads on the video. All I could say is I don't control where YouTube places ads. I will highly recommend folks check out YouTube Premium. I pay for it. I think it's worth it. And it's like a guilty pleasure to have it, but not having any ads on YouTube videos is glorious. So highly, highly recommend it. If you want no ads on the audio version of this podcast, patreon.com/hawkblogger, no ads. And you also get access to the Discord server, and you get verified over at hbtix.com, hbtix.com. Best place to get the best deals on Seahawks tickets from Seahawks fans. Seahawks fans selling tickets to Seahawks fans. Let's keep home field advantage protected over at hbtix.com. All right, so let's get into it, folks. First thing I want to share with you is a little bit about this, what's different about Jacoby Brissett versus Kyler Murray. This is a look at a chart generated by Ben Baldwin's running backs still don't matter, rbsdm.com website, which is super useful for a bunch of advanced metrics. And this is looking at quarterback efficiency. Now, the first thing you're going to notice, as you should, is Sam Darnold's up in the right. He's the number one, one of one. He is one of all the quarterbacks in the NFL in quarterback efficiency. And on one axis, we're looking at completion rate above expected. That is the horizontal axis. And then the vertical axis is EPA per play, expected points added. So upper right is good. Lower left is bad. Sam Darnold's the upper of the upper right. And now I want you to look a little more closely. You're going to have to see Kyler Murray is over here in the lower left-hand quadrant. He is down there, in the kind of Russell Wilson-ish territory, the Jaden Daniels now territory. Not so great this year. But if you look over to the upper right quadrant, you'll see a little red dot next to Jacoby Brissett's name. Jacoby Brissett is up there beyond Aaron Rodgers for this year. He is like at least in the vicinity of Matt Stafford and Dak Prescott, and similar to Jalen Hurts a little bit in terms of his efficiency. Now, I am not saying he is as good or better than any of those players, but it's evidence that he has been a meaningfully better and more efficient quarterback than Kyler Murray so far this season. And one of the things that's, I think, stood out about Brissett, as I kind of went through some of the numbers, is this is a guy that is having, I think, a lot of success on third down. First of all, he's actually got like 130 passer rating on third down. He's been very efficient in that regard. One of the other things is that he has really stood out against man coverage. So where Kyler Murray had only completed 52% of his passes with 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4.1 yards per attempt against man coverage, Jacoby Brissett has completed 65%, 8.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. So he has been much more efficient against man coverage than Kyler Murray. That's one of the biggest differences between these two players. Seahawks play man, but they're predominantly zone, so maybe that doesn't become a huge issue, but it's worth noting. They're pretty similar in terms of zone coverage success, but Brissett has still been more successful against zone coverage than Kyler Murray. And then another place where there's a huge difference, Jacoby Brissett versus cover 2. Jacoby Brissett versus cover 2 is completing 81% of his passes, 10.4 yards per attempt, plus 0.48 EPA per attempt. So that, just to give you some idea of the comparison, Kyler Murray versus cover 2, he was a negative 0.33 EPA per attempt. So you're over a point per pass play different when Jacoby Brissett is going against cover 2 than Kyler Murray. So it's a significant difference between these two players. Now, some places where they are not that different. When under pressure, Jacoby Brissett is basically the same bad player that Kyler Murray has been. In fact, Jacoby Brissett has been worse under pressure than Kyler Murray. He's averaged under 5 yards per attempt and a negative EPA per attempt, where Kyler Murray was about 5.8 yards per attempt and just basically above, like barely above neutral in terms of EPA. So if you want Jacoby Brissett to be a different player, a bad player, you want to get pressure on him. And one of the things that's also worth noting here is Jacoby Brissett has a much higher time to throw. He is averaging over 3.1 seconds per pass per throw. Okay. So 3.13 seconds per throw for Jacoby Brissett. Kyler Murray was at 2.68. That's a pretty, might sound small, but that's a huge difference. That's like top of the league quick passing versus bottom of the league slow passing in terms of that. And what's that translated into? Kyler Murray only faced a 29.9% pressure rate this year. Pretty much same offensive line. Jacoby Brissett has faced a 48% pressure rate this year. 48%. That is, huge. And in fact, I'm going to check to see how big that is relative to the rest of the league. I wouldn't be surprised if it's toward the top in terms of pressure rate. So Jacoby Brissett's going to hold the ball longer. He is going to perform poorly when under pressure. And yep, I just found out looking at this now, he has the highest pressure rate against of any quarterback that has played meaningful snaps this year. I mean, it's him at 48% and then Justin Fields at 46.7. So this is a guy that is not going to be mobile. He is not going to break the pocket and scramble the way Kyler Murray did. And let's face it, a big part of that comeback for the Cardinals in the first matchup of these two teams was that Kyler Murray scrambled for some yards. And the Seahawks have had some challenges with quarterbacks scrambling for yards against them. That's not Jacoby Brissett's game. So as much as Jacoby Brissett has been a clearly better player at the quarterback position, better processor, more accurate, more downfield, his average yards per attempt is basically 2 yards more than Kyler Murray. He is also going to be a statue back there. And the Seahawks have not faced many statues this year. The only one that I think really qualifies is Aaron Rodgers. And they got after him pretty good. So, and I don't think that Jacoby Brissett's movement in the pocket is even as good as a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's a big thing to monitor. But I also want to talk about some of just the differences in the lineups between these two teams from last time to this time. So let me get this a little bit easier to see. So this is a look at the lineup changes, and a little hard to see. So let me zoom in again. All right. So we already talked about the change at quarterback from Murray to Jacoby Brissett. So this is just a look at who was in the lineup week 4 for the Cardinals versus who's going to be in the lineup week 10 for the Cardinals. So the other one, Trey Benson, who was already replacing James Conner, is out, and Bam Knight is the guy that is getting the bulk of the carries. Amari DeMarcado is their change of pace guy. They're kind of splitting reps. DeMarcado is much more of a big play kind of threat, but he's a little guy. Bam Knight's a little bit of their heavier, running back and getting the bulk of the carries. So Bam Knight, he was not part of the game in the first matchup. Another change is Zay Jones, their ex receiver, did not play in the first game. Greg Dortch was kind of the guy that was the third receiver in that one. Zay Jones will be back for this one. So he is not a game-changing player, but he is a larger receiver, bigger guy, and is a capable ex receiver. He's not great, but he's capable. You also will see a change on the offensive line. Isaiah Adams had been in at guard. He's been pretty bad. And Will Hernandez, the veteran, has now come back. This is a guy that I think I have more respect for than Isaiah Adams as a player, and I think solidifies at least that guard position for them. The defense, it's a little hard. Like, I was looking at snap counts and kind of who plays what positions. It's a little hard to kind of make it a 1-for-1 swap of who Walter Nolan's getting snaps for. It's affected all sorts of guys in that lineup in terms of where snaps changed. But the point is, Walter Nolan's going to be in this game. He was not in the first game. That's a pretty big difference for that interior offensive line to be aware of. And then a couple others that are worth paying attention to. So I talked about Mack Wilson Sr., their starting inside backer. He's big, a big playmaker, big blitzer, can be a big hitter, but he got hurt against the Cowboys. If he's not able to play, then you'll probably see more Cody Simon, who is their 4th round pick, I believe, out of Ohio State linebacker. I like him. I thought he played pretty well against Dallas, but it is not easy for linebackers to go against this Clint Kubiak offense. And a rookie will probably be a target if that's the case. Then you got Catrell Clark was getting snaps in that first week because Will Johnson was out. Garrett Williams was out. Now Will Johnson and Garrett Williams are back. And I think that this is their best trio of corners, even though Max Melton has been getting snaps. he might miss this game with a concussion. I don't think that that's a huge loss for this team if that happens. I think Will Johnson and Garrett Williams are really, I think, high quality cornerbacks. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the Seahawks go up against that crew. So that's looking at the Cardinals' differences in their lineups. If we look at the Seahawks, let's talk about it. Don't know if Cooper Kupp's going to be out for this game, and there's plenty of ways to kind of represent the introduction of Rashid Shaheed. Just for simplicity's sake, I put it as, let's assume that Kupp is not able to go again this week. And you've got a trio of Jackson Smith and Jigba, Rashid Shaheed, and Torrey Horton Jr. How nice is it to say that? I mean, that is a electric trio of receivers that all do pretty much everything well and can play all the different positions. So we will get to see the debut of Rashid Shaheed this week, I would assume, unless there's some weird reason why they wouldn't. That's a pretty big change for the Cardinals, and they are not going to have any film to go on for how Rashid Shaheed will be used other than looking at his utilization in the first few games last year with Clint Kubiak in New Orleans. And while that will be potentially instructive, also consider the fact that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was a pretty good player in Clint Kubiak's offense last season and didn't make this team this year. So it's not a one-to-one exactly of how that's going to play out. Different quarterbacks, different line, different, there's just some differences. There's a little bit of an advantage there in that the Cardinals don't know exactly how Kubiak plans to utilize Rashid Shaheed. And I would say there's a little bit of a disadvantage for the Seahawks in one way, which is this is the first time Sam Darnold's going to have thrown to him. He's been throwing to all these other receivers since April, or somewhere around there. And to have a new guy come in, no matter how good he is, he runs routes differently. He runs them at a different speed. They have to get on the same page when they're running a choice route and the receiver makes one read. Does he make the same read as the quarterback? So there's some familiarity where it'll take some time potentially for that to develop or not. I mean, who knows? We will see how quickly that comes to pass. Another one that's worth noting, Eric Saubert is on IR. Nick Callerup will be getting his second game with snaps in this one. So that's also a difference in this game. A couple other things I wanted to call out there as differences between this game and the last one. Now, this is also a little bit of a weird way to represent it, but remember, DeMarcus Lawrence got hurt in that first Arizona game. He only played 10 snaps in that game. He pulled his quad or something along those lines. And so we've all seen how important DeMarcus Lawrence is to this defense. He's back. He's available. That will be a big part of this game. I would also say Uchenna Nwosu, that was kind of his breakout game. And he's gotten nothing more than more confident and more impactful since that game. So even though he was there and had a couple sacks in that one, I still think that, that's a little bit of a difference from then till now. And then Drake Thomas that was the first game that he started getting the majority of snaps at linebacker. We don't know what's going to happen with Ernest Jones this week. Best guess is that he won't play, but we will find out more information today. If that's the case, then you're going to get Tyrese Knight and Drake Thomas on the field at the same time. That's a pretty big difference. Ernest Jones is a huge, huge part of tying the back end and the front end together. He's a huge part of the run defense. So we will see how Tyrese Knight and Drake Thomas hold up in that regard. And then this was one of the last games that Nicky Manwari didn't play. He did not play against the Cardinals. So Arizona, get ready to be introduced to Nicky Manwari. He's going to be in this one and has been impactful in pretty much every game he's played since he's been back in the lineup. Finally, Julian Love on IR played in that game and it will not play in this game. So we'll get Ty Okada in this one, where he was not available in the previous. So there's more stuff to cover. I'm going to get to it in a second. Before I do, let me check out Super Chats because I know there are a few already there. Let me get these up here. We've got Hayden Miller, who has become a new member on YouTube. Welcome to the crew, Hayden. Great to have you. And then Joshua Duncan. He says, "Hey, Brian, love the show. Watch them every day, stationed in Japan." Well, thank you for doing that. And thanks for your service, by the way. Anyways, I was wondering if you think Seattle might have called the Saints about Chris Olave first and then got scared off about the price and pivoted to Shaheed for a cheaper price. Excuse me. I have no doubts that they asked about Chris Olave, found out what the price was, and determined that the value, the bang for the buck, the return on investment was just higher with Rashid Shaheed. Chris Olave is going to have it. Already has his 5th-year option picked up, is going to be more expensive, and was also going to be more expensive to acquire. So I think that they are getting a lot of what they need, kind of the perfect thing that they need in Rashid Shaheed. Olave would have been a guy where you almost had to sit Cooper Kupp. Like he's a guy that's not necessarily a downfield threat. He's not a specific type of receiver. He is like JSN. He's an all-around player. And I think that would have been amazing for the next few years to have those two and Torrey Horton. I think that's about as good of a receiving crew as you could have. But I think Rashid Shaheed actually is a more complementary fit for what the Seahawks have been lacking. As much as Torrey Horton has some speed to his game, and JSN certainly has this year, Rashid Shaheed's on a different level in terms of stretching the field and threatening defenses that way. So I think that's why that deal got made. Josh Duncan says, another question, is there any other confirmed conversations of trades we tried to do? No, there was a report from John Friscella. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but anyway, that the Seahawks tried really hard to get Max Crosby. Whether that's accurate or not, I can't say for sure. I don't have any information beyond that from him, but I will say that it tracks to me. I think Max Crosby is exactly, we already know the Seahawks tried to trade for Max Crosby before the season and were denied. And now sounds like they tried to trade for him again, and I'm guessing we're denied. So wouldn't surprise me if they continue trying to get Max Crosby in the postseason, not the postseason, the off season, I should say. So that's the only other one I know for sure was reported. Whether that's accurate, I can't say. And then, the Seahawks were probably in on most of these conversations. They just didn't make any of those deals. All right. So Peter Go Hawks says, this feels like a trap game. The Hawks need to put the pedal down and dominate Arizona and make a statement that we are the dominant force in the NFC. Yeah, I think that was my take on the first time these two teams played. Not really that it was a trap game, but it was an easy game to underestimate the Cardinals, especially they were playing at home and they were playing on a Thursday night. It was a short week for the Seahawks, and the Cardinals were desperate. Well, the Seahawks really should have blown that team out that night. And then I also said, hey, you got to watch out for this Commanders team. They're not a good match. Like the Seahawks are clearly better from a matchup perspective. You can go back and watch this show from last week. You can read first the tail of the tape from last week. I was like, the Seahawks should win this game going away, but home game, prime time, desperate team, the Commanders could make this tighter than you thought. Seahawks dominated that game. So this is a long way of saying I think the Seahawks are starting to reach a level where they are showing that they play to their level each week, and it's just about whether an opponent can hang with them. We have not really seen a game where it just seemed like they didn't bring it that week. The closest you could say is the Bucs game, where it seemed like the defensive line just didn't have quite the same performance that they've had in every other game this year. But for the most part, the teams brought it each and every week. So I don't know if I see this team as susceptible to trap games at this point. I agree with you that this is a game that everyone's going to tell them that they should win. They're going to see that they should win. They know that they've already beaten this team. And I will also say the Clint Kubiak effect. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but this is like a pitcher going against a baseball lineup. This is the second time he's going to go against a team for the first time this year. We'll see how that goes. I expect it to go well, but they got less effective in that game the first time they played. And then fortunately we're able to make the big play at the end to get a field goal to win it. But yeah, that's a factor in a storyline in this one. So I don't know if I see it as a trap game, but I think it's a fair statement to at least be concerned for some of those reasons. Bobby, Detail Oriented's gifted 20 Hawk Blogger memberships. Thank you, Bobby. Always generous with everything he's done for the channel. Greatly appreciate it. If you get one of these free memberships, consider giving one. It's a giving group, and we try to pay it forward wherever we can, or upgrade to a club level membership. You get access to the Discord server. If you do that, you can hang out and talk with us in between the shows and across the weeks. Justin Smith just became a YouTube member. Welcome to the party. Great to have you. OEL says, now introducing the Legion of Zoom starring JSN, Torrey Horton, Rashid Shaheed. I'm very excited, Brian. Well, I'm glad you're excited. I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited. All right. So let's get back into this matchup. I've got more to share with you guys. This is definitely going to be longer than an hour-long show, but you know, you guys are sickos. You can handle it. So let's look at, let me see if I can make this a little bit narrower and keep the chat up there. This, I don't know. We'll see. Let me, yeah, I'm gonna have to turn chat off on the screen. Sorry, guys. I like having it up there for you all, but I think this is probably a little bit better. So this is a look at kind of who the teams were when they first met versus where they are now. And now, granted, I've got week 1 through 5 versus week 6 through 9. The Seahawks played the Cardinals in week 4, so this is not technically who they were in that game. This is who they were with Kyler Murray and who they've been since Kyler Murray is the way to look at this chart. And as you go into this, you see that the Cardinals offensively were 20th in EPA per play in the first 5 weeks. They've been 13th since. They were 15th in EPA per dropback. They've been 13th since. They were 29th in rush EPA. They are 22nd since. Now, none of those since numbers are like dynamic or amazing. They're not like the number 1 at anything or top 10 in anything, but they're all better. The offense is better. And by the way, I would say their competition has been better. They played the Packers and the Colts. The Colts was on the road as 2 of those 3 games. So they're going against pretty good teams. And then interestingly, so weeks 1 through 5 includes the Tampa Bay game. So if you look at the Seahawks defense, they were 17th in EPA per play in the first 5 weeks. They've been 4th since. They were 22nd in EPA per dropback. They've been 6th since. Say that 10 times fast. Rush EPA, they were 3rd before. They are 4th since. So they've basically just been very consistent as a dominant run defense. Now, if you flip it around and you look at the Seahawks on offense, they were 9th in EPA per play. They've been 16th since. So it's interesting. They've dropped because they've been playing. If you don't know it, I talked to you guys about this before. The Seahawks had one of the toughest schedules of defenses that they were going to play the rest of the year. I think that's starting to show in some of these numbers, even though they performed from a point perspective pretty well. So from 9th to 16th in EPA per play. From EPA per dropback, they went from 2nd to 8th. Rush EPA 26th to 27th. So they have not been a good run team regardless. Cardinals defensively, this one surprised me because I think that they've been pretty good, but they went from 12th to 18th in EPA per play. They went from 16th to 14th in EPA per dropback, and they went from 6th to 26th in rush EPA. So they have really struggled in defending the run the last 3 weeks. So that's something to keep an eye out on. All right, let's keep going. We're going to look at DVOA, and we look at this every week. And if you look at DVOA for this matchup, you know, DVOA is very high on the Seahawks. Number 1 DVOA team. We've talked about this before. Number 2 defense, number 4 offense for the Seahawks. Cardinals, like their defense is top 10. It's 10th in DVOA. So I just want to reemphasize, this is a good defense. You can feel excited and confident and proud of your team. Also, just look, this is why I do this. This is why I've been obsessive for this for all these years. I want to anticipate where there could be some challenges for the Seahawks by looking at objective numbers and like where some things might be different than what you want them to be. This Cardinals defense is going to be one of the better defenses the Seahawks face the rest of the year. I believe that to be true. Doesn't mean the Seahawks won't play great against it, but it is a tough defense to go against. They are 9th in DVOA for pass defense, 20th in run defense. So I do think that the run defense is one thing to watch in this regard. And we'll see if Rashid Shaheed has that impact on, like, the Cardinals already like to play light boxes. Now they're going to have even more incentive to play a light box against the Seahawks with Rashid Shaheed out there. Does the run game get untracked? That's something to pay attention to. And, you know, when we look back at that first game for the Seahawks, you know, there was some success on the ground in that game. Kenneth Walker had 19 carries for 81 yards in that game. And that is the second most yards he's had the third most yards he's had all season. He had the most against the Steelers. He had 105. He had 86 against the Bucks, but he had 81 against the Cardinals. So there was some success there. And that's just something that the Seahawks will hopefully start to build the last half of the season. Special teams wise, the Seahawks have been the best in the NFL by DVOA and by other metrics. Cardinals 19th, so not great there. And then in terms of defending different types of receivers, the Cardinals have been pretty good all the way around. Their one blemish is 26th against wide receiver threes. I think that's a little probably hard to judge with the changes going on at the cornerback position. Garrett Williams literally just played his first game in a long time. Will Johnson has just been getting back. So, you know, I would not put too much into that. All right, let's get into looking at when the Seahawks have the ball on offense. And as we look at this, you know, you've got a few places where the Cardinals have some pretty clear advantages. The Cardinals have been the 10th best third down defense in the NFL. Seahawks are still 22nd on offense, although they had a really good third down performance against the Commanders. And then the running defense, I mean, versus the Seahawks rush offense. You see all the red there, whether it's rush yards, yards per rush, rush EPA. Cardinals have an advantage there, even though that's not their strongest aspect of their defense. The Seahawks have been so bad running the ball that, at least in this regard, it seems to favor the Cardinals. We'll see how that actually plays out during the game. One place where there is a huge advantage for the Seahawks, as much as I like some of the things that the Cardinals have done on their defense, including Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell and Walter Nolan, the sack rate for the Cardinals is 26th in the NFL. The Seahawks are third in the NFL in sack rate in terms of what they've allowed on offense. So it has become a thing that it is hard to get to Sam Darnold. And that's just a shocker for, I think, a lot of folks, but something that has become kind of a strength of this offense. Then as we look through, one of the places the Cardinals have their biggest advantage is in turnovers. Bo kind of talked about this to some extent. The Seahawks are 29th in the NFL in giveaways. That has got to stop. They've got to stop giving the ball away at the rate that they've been doing it. And, you know, the Seahawks, as far as turnovers go, they've had at least one turnover in every game but one this year. They've only gone one game without giving the ball away. That was in Jacksonville. Against the Cardinals, they had a turnover. And I mean, they have to solve this problem. They cannot keep turning the ball over the way that they have and expect to, you know, go and go to where they want to go as a team. Cardinals are 10th in takeaways. So they've actually caused a lot of fumbles. They're only 21st in interception rate. So it's not like they're picking off a lot of passes, but they have forced a lot of fumbles and recovered a lot of fumbles. And that's just something that the Seahawks have to be aware of as a team that, unfortunately for the Seahawks defensively, they have not caused any fumbles. The Seahawks defense has caused 0 fumbles this year. That's got to change. All right. So getting to the Cardinals on when the Cardinals are on defense, Cardinals are on offense and the Seahawks are on defense. Talk about that in just a second. I think we've got another super chat, so let me get to that. I never want to forget the super chats from you guys. All right, so Elite TV, who's been a member of the channel for a couple months. Great to have you, man. Says, go Hawks, love the show. Keep up the great work, GOAT. Well, man, that is nice of you, man. I appreciate you and appreciate all of you for hanging out with me as we obsess about this team together. All right, so let's get back to it. Looking at the Seahawks when they're on defense, this is kind of a slaughter, and it's also a little misleading because, as I said, this is full season ranks for the Cardinals offense. They've been significantly better since the Jacoby Brissett entry into the lineup. So take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but like yards per play, Cardinals are 27th in the NFL. The Seahawks are 3rd on defense. That's a huge, that's a good encapsulation of how hard this matchup is for the Cardinals in that regard. One place where the Cardinals have an advantage, they are 4th in the NFL in 3rd down conversions, which is kind of wild. It's wild to me that they're doing that. And Bo referred to this. I actually want to look this up if you guys will give me a second to do it. I want to look up 3rd and long rates for the Cardinals because I have a feeling they are converting those at a pretty good clip. And that might be a storyline for this game. So I'm going to look this up over here and say, okay, 3rd downs, and we want 7 or longer to go. And let's see how the Cardinals have converted. The Seahawks are the 2nd worst team in the NFL in converting 3rd and long. Arizona is 5th in the NFL in completing 3rd and long. They're 32.8% compared to the Seahawks for what it's worth, 17.6%. Now, the Seahawks on 3rd and long honestly have not been that good. This is kind of interesting. The Seahawks are like 16th in the NFL on defense in 3rd and long. They've given up a 26% conversion rate. The Cardinals are number 1 in the NFL on defense in limiting conversions on 3rd and long, 15.8%. So that's kind of it. Like Seahawks being worst in that or 2nd worst in that on offense, going against the best 3rd and long defense. You've got one of the best 3rd and long offenses going against one of the mediocre 3rd and long defenses. For me, that's a storyline to watch in this game. And something, I'm curious about. Now, I'm going to limit this for a second because I want to see with Jacoby Brissett how it's been going. And so I'm going to limit this to just week 6 forward. And let's see. Now, remember, the Cardinals were at 5th on offense with a 32.8% conversion rate on 3rd and long for the full season. Let's see where they are. Yeah, 37.5% since Jacoby Brissett's been in the lineup, 4th in the NFL. So that's a story. That's a storyline for this game, is the Cardinals' potentially ability to stay on the field and frustrate the Seahawks on 3rd and long. All right. So other things that I wanted to bring up for the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. was going through it the last time these teams played. He had 2 brutal drops against the 49ers that probably cost them that game. A drop that turned into an interception for Ernest Jones against the Seahawks. It was looking rough for him. Now, he did have kind of a redemption game, caught the game-tying touchdown, or wasn't the game tying touchdown, but he caught a late touchdown in that game over Devin Witherspoon. And then in the last game he played, had 7 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown against the Cowboys. Didn't do that much in the previous 2 games with Jacoby Brissett. Only 2 catches in each of those games, but has had some big plays. Had a 35-yarder against the Packers and has had at least one 20-plus yard catch in each of the games with Jacoby Brissett. So he's a little bit of a difference. Trey McBride, who everybody knows, right? Kind of all-world tight end. He's always given the Seahawks challenges and did again in the first game, 7 catches for 52 yards. Since he's been playing with Jacoby Brissett, I mean, this guy had 1 touchdown in 5 games with Kyler Murray. He has 4 touchdowns in 3 games with Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, he has been a much bigger threat with Jacoby Brissett than he was with Kyler Murray. So watch out for him and keep in mind, this is a Seahawks team that, as good as it's been, it ranks 24th in the NFL from a DVOA perspective in defending the tight end. Now, Nicky Manwari can be a factor there. He wasn't there the first game. I'm kind of eager to see Nicky Manwari against Trey McBride. That could be a really fun matchup, but that's just something to keep an eye on. All right. Other places. So the Cardinals have really struggled to run the ball. 26th in rush EPA. Seahawks #1 rush EPA defense. Cardinals have not been an explosive team. They're 27th in explosive pass rate on offense. Seahawks are 11th, pretty good at limiting explosive passes. Explosive rush rate, 25th. This is just not an explosive offense. They are a methodical, move the ball down the field, convert on 3rd down kind of offense. The Seahawks are 2nd in the NFL in explosive rush rate allowed. They have done a decent job of protecting the football, only 13th in the NFL in giveaways. So that's something that bodes well. They're 26th in the NFL in sack rate allowed. And this is a team that, I mean, if you watch that Cowboys game, wasn't pretty in terms of pass protection. The Cowboys got a number of sacks against Jacoby Brissett. And I'm just looking right now. Yeah, I mean, he was sacked 5 times against the Cowboys. He was sacked 6 times against the Packers and 2 times against the Colts. So that's a lot of sacks in not a lot of time. And their overall like pass block win rate is 15th. Their run block win rate is 15th. So they have not necessarily had a ton of success in terms of pass protection. And if we look at who is the problem there, I'm going to take a look real quick at who's been giving up the most pressures this year. Evan Brown has given up 19 pressures, and Jonah Williams, their right tackle, has given up 19 pressures. Paris Johnson Jr. has given up 16 pressures. So those guys have all had some challenges. Will Hernandez, since he's been back, has given up 12 pressures in 4 games. He has a 38.7 pass block grade, which is not good. So yeah, it's been rough for them. It's been pretty rough for them. I think their center is good, a quality player, but the rest of the line has been struggling. And if we look at Jonah Williams, I'm just going to kind of look at him over the last few games. Well, it seems like it doesn't want to let me do that. Oh, well. Anyway, he has not been great. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on. All right. So other pieces here, special teams. We'll get into this real quick. Seahawks are still pretty low in terms of overall accuracy with Jason Myers, but he is top 10 in terms of 50-plus yard field goals made. Cardinals not so great in kicking. As far as special teams goes, or as far as coverage goes, Seahawks have been really good in covering kicks. Cardinals have been reasonably good in returning kicks. Cardinals have been below average in covering kicks, and the Seahawks have been pretty elite in covering kicks, or in returning the ball, I should say. So that's kind of a breeze through the numbers. There's a lot more I'm going to get into in terms of individual matchups and other aspects of this game. But when you look at this in general, I think it comes down to the fact that as much as I think the Cardinals are a better offensive team with Jacoby Brissett, I think this is a rough matchup for them. I don't think the fact that he is a stationary kind of statue in the pocket is a good thing for Cardinals fans with the Seahawks pass rush. Part of what the Seahawks do on their pass rush, they stunt and twist more than almost any other team. And when you stunt and twist against a running quarterback or a scrambling quarterback, you create run lanes for that guy to break through. Leonard Williams has talked about that this year, as have others. So they have to kind of hold back to some extent in what they're best at when they're facing true scrambling quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett's not that. So they can do everything that they want to do from a pass rush perspective against this guy. This Cardinals offensive line has struggled with the Seahawks pass rush dating back to last year. So that's an issue for the Cardinals. And I think that they're playing even worse this year. And I think the Seahawks pass rush is as good as it's been all season. Uchenna Nwosu's full go. DeMarcus Lawrence is back. Boye Mafe, Derek Hall. I think it's just a problem. And now you've got Nicky Minori and Devin Witherspoon there as well. You saw how Devin Witherspoon had an awesome corner blitz that led to what became the interception for Ty Okada against Commanders. I think you're going to see more and more of that kind of thing in this game. And I was looking at this before the show. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Where is it? I'll pull it up here and we'll see if I can grab it. But as far as unblocked pressure rates, so the Seahawks are second in the NFL in having Mike McDonald create unblocked pressures at 30.2%. Only the Bills have created more unblocked pressures this year. That means you don't even have basically it means Mike McDonald is decoding the protection rules for his opponents and finding ways to get guys running free at the quarterback. That doesn't even mean that they're just going to win their one-on-ones, which I think they will as well in this game. The other thing is that the Seahawks are 7th in the NFL in quick pressure rate. This is pressures that happen under 2.5 seconds. So I think that's going to make this very hard. But the fact that the Seahawks are already a very good run defense and the Cardinals are a very bad run offense, combined with the fact that the Seahawks can rush the passer, this is a very tough group for the Cardinals to deal with. And I'm not sure I see like what it is that they can exploit that will work out well for them, but we'll find out. I mean, as far as rushing yards, like I'm just looking here. They had 119 yards rushing against the Cowboys, and a lot of that was Amari DiMercato. He had 14 carries for 79 yards. Bam Knight had 9 carries for 27 yards, but he did outsnap DiMercato. So expect DiMercato to get, a decent number of chances, and he is kind of a scat back. He in the first game against the Seahawks had 2 carries for 8 yards. So, I don't know. I don't see the Cardinals' advantage on offense enough that they're going to be able to put up like more than 17 points. Like feels like a reasonable, like that would be a good outcome for the Cardinals. If they can get over 20 points, that would be a great outcome for the Cardinals. On when the Seahawks have the ball, I do think there's going to be some challenges for Seattle, but Rashid Shaheed's in there, Torrey Horton, JSN. I love the personnel groupings that they can throw out there. You've got Robbie Oots available to you. You've got the whole crew. So other than maybe Cooper Kupp, we'll find out about that. And this is going to be a test to see if the Seahawks can run the ball effectively against this team. Calais Campbell was a handful in that first game. Remember that Anthony Bradford, that was the game where that I think personally, I consider it to be a Bush League video came out where someone cherry picked his worst plays, and they were really bad in that game. But if you looked at the whole game, it wasn't that bad. And then I think even with that reality, it's kind of a chance for Anthony Bradford to show that the game against the Commanders was not an aberration. That was his best game. He played well. And can he sustain that? So we will find out. Sorry, my text messages are blowing up. So oh, never mind. It's something unrelated. I thought something big was happening, but it's not. And I see our troll saying it was cherry picked every other play. I literally went and made a video of all his plays in situations where there's pass protection to be made, and most of them just weren't that bad. So if folks would like to actually post the videos of every single pass block snap from even that Arizona game, which was considered his worst game, I encourage you to go look at it. Look for yourself. And is the Seahawks offense unable to function with how he's been pass blocking? It just hasn't been true. This is, as of right now, as I said, the third best team in the NFL in terms of pressure rate. They are in pass block win rate. They are 10th in the NFL. In run block win rate, they're 9th in the NFL. So people can keep hammering on it all they want, but as far as the way this team's performing, they're performing just fine with Anthony Bradford at right guard. So I will continue to be the person I'm not sitting here like saying he's the best ever. I'm just going to continue to be trying to be factual about this, that I think people are just engagement farming because he's been proven to be the guy that all the fans hate and want to get off the team. So I don't think he has been quite as bad as everyone wants to make him out to be. All right. I know we've got some more super chats. Let's get into those. David Galt says MVS and Shaheed were acquired to fill the same need after dumping DK. Both are speedy receivers that played for Kubiak. What makes Shaheed better? Well, there's a lot of things that make Shaheed better. I think he is probably play speed faster than MVS, although MVS is very fast in his own right. Shaheed has had much more sustained success than MVS has. There's a reason MVS has bounced around a bunch of teams. And even this year, I think he's been on 3 or 4 different teams. I think he's on it with the Steelers now. And then MVS also has had problems holding onto the football, has not been someone who's a good, reliable receiver in that regard. And let's actually, even though we're way past an hour, let's dive in a little bit more on Shaheed as a receiver and some of the things that he has shown over the years. And we'll look at some of the more advanced metrics in this regard. So as far as let's look at well, I mean, yards per route run is one of the more accepted advanced metrics. He's been a guy that's been over 2 yards per route run in multiple years. That is a elite amount of efficiency. He has, I'm looking at his catch rate. Where is his just catch rate? Let me see if I can find this. Receiving. It's looking like I'm not getting what I'm looking for there. Let me look for it another place. Thank you for being patient as I pull up data from like 20 different sources. He's a better route runner. I think he is someone who's more consistently going to catch the football And of course, the place I'm trying to go is now having server problems. Never mind. He can play at any position. I think MVS was more specifically a X only. Shaheed can play any of the spots along the line. He also has been a reasonably good contested catcher. He has caught 50% of his contested catches this year. A couple years ago, he was at 55.6, so he's been able to do that as well. So yeah, I think this is a guy that can excel against man, can excel against zone. In fact, I'm going to see if I can find that information. Will this work? Let's hope this works. So let's look at Rashid Shaheed. Gosh, is the internet just dying today? Why is everything so slow? All right, here we go. Let's look at Rashid. Oh yeah, look at this. So Rashid Shaheed this year in the NFL, 12th against man coverage in terms of his grade. He has an 83.4 grade against man coverage. So he has been fantastic there. Not as good against zone. But as far as being somebody who catches the football, he has no drops this year. 0 drops this year. That's pretty good. But if you're going to go man against the Seahawks, good luck. Because in addition to Rashid Shaheed being great against man coverage, JSN is 3rd in the NFL in terms of receiving grade against man coverage, 91.6. So you've now got 2 of the 12 best receivers in the NFL against man coverage. And to give you an idea of like who after that, believe it or not, Cooper Kupp, 21st in the NFL in receiving grade, 78.7 against man coverage. So he's been pretty good. And then if you keep going down the list, Torrey Horton is 43rd. Each one of those receivers have a grade above 70 against man coverage. So the Seahawks are now just a nightmare against teams that play man coverage. Against zone, this is going to be one that's interesting to see. Now, JSN's elite against zone regardless. I think he might be, he's the number 1 graded receiver in the NFL against zone coverage. When you go to the rest of the Seahawks, that's where things start to drop a little bit. So the next best receiver the Seahawks have is Cooper Kupp at 48th in zone coverage, against zone coverage. So, that's just something we'll kind of monitor going forward. But good question. We'll kind of get more into this as time goes by. All right. Next question from Quarters Only. Can we expect more 11 personnel with Shaheed and less 12, 13, and 21 type sets? Also, shout out to Brian and all his hard work. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you. I don't know. I think that the expectation would be yes. But I'm also curious if it's going to mean more Rashid Shaheed and JSN as the 2 receivers in 12 personnel or 21 personnel. That's just a nightmare for teams. I don't know what they're going to do in those situations. In some ways, you would want to stick in 12 and 21 and force teams to say, all right, well, we're going to have to deal with your 2 tight ends. We're going to bring more guys down and we're going to play man against those 2 receivers in like what is maybe we'll even Seahawks can even max protect and have 2 receiver routes. And I'd like the Seahawks chances in that case still. So I just think they've given teams a lot to have to figure out, and there's not a lot of good solutions. Do I also think that they'll probably do more 11 personnel with 3 receivers? Yeah, probably. And I'm just going to take a quick look at how they've performed in 11 personnel. They did really well last week, but they've been 22nd in the NFL in EPA per play when in 11, EPA per pass, they've been 13th. So I could see in 11 personnel them jumping up from just outside the top 10 to being like a top 5, top 7, 11 personnel team in terms of of how that works. When the Seahawks are in 11 personnel, they pass it 70% of the time. So that is a heavy passing situation. And I think now they just have way, way more threatening options to put out there than they did before. And it's not even just the Shaheed thing. It's that Torrey Horton just put 2 touchdowns on the heads of the Commanders, and teams are like, oh man, we know he's good. Now we have to figure out what we're going to do with him. And you add Shaheed to that, and Elijah Arroyo just caught his first touchdown on a beautiful pass, and AJ, like, what's your solution there? I don't know that there's an easy one to come up with. All right, Jay Malfair says, I always learn when you cut the numbers like that. Well, thanks, man. I'm glad. I learned too. I mean, I don't claim to know all this stuff. I just do the research and I try to share what I learned because, look, man, if you don't have sports anxiety for your favorite team, then we're different people. I don't care how good, like, the best that your team can possibly be is sometimes the most scary because it's like, oh my God, everything's going the right direction. I don't want anything to surprise us. I don't want anything like to go the wrong way because you don't get those seasons very often. So we're in one of those kinds of seasons where things are starting to build in the right direction. And that just makes me want to dive even deeper into the numbers so we can all understand what's happening. And hopefully you guys feel like that's happened. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the first place where you heard about the Seahawks' success in 21 personnel and what's been going on there. I think it's probably the first place, hopefully, that you heard about this notion of how that's affecting defenses in terms of getting heavier boxes and how that's helped the Seahawks become an explosive passing team. Now everyone nationally is talking about it like they've found this great insight, but I think we've been talking about it here since basically like week 3. So, all that, plus we talked about the Rashid Shaheed trade since like April. So hopefully you guys feel like you're benefiting from all the obsession that we've got on this channel about the Seahawks and what makes sense. OEL says, also Rashid is a damn good kick returner as well. This is true. And I am curious how they're going to play that out. I'd expect Torrey Horton to still return punts, but who knows? Maybe they change that up. I'm good with whatever they want to do at this point. It's just going to be fun to watch. And let's hope that we get to see this kind of come to fruition this week. So, all right. There's always more. There's always more to cover. I've got to head to the VMAC here in a bit. We'll be talking to Sam Darnold, or Sam Darnold tomorrow. I can't remember. We'll be talking to Mike McDonald and some other folks. I'll probably be doing some locker room conversations with guys since I didn't really get a chance to do locker room after the Commanders game. So keep an eye out. Patreon.com/HawkBloggers, where I post my locker room interviews. It's also where you get ad-free audio of this show and get access to the Discord server and get verified over at HBTix. I mean, patreon.com/HawkBlogger seems like the obvious place to go. Also, if you haven't already, I put the link in the description of the video. I'll also put this QR code back up. We are going to be going to Nashville in a few weeks, and we have some awesome sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once and I stopped myself from thinking. We have an awesome VIP setup that we've got in a bar, VIP lounge that we are going to take over. It's going to be a ticketed event. We're going to do a Real Hawk Talk live during this event. It'll be streamed out so everyone can watch and listen. But if you want to attend in person, I think there's only 50 spots, and there's less than 50 now because I've already heard from a number of people who've bought tickets to this. You get a free drink with your ticket. You get a chance to get pictures with us if you're interested. Dana will be there. Evan will be there. Nathan, Derek, Josh, Jeff, like the whole crew in Nashville. So talk about a great reason to go to Nashville and hang out. This would be it. And yeah, gonna be fun. Highly recommend you take advantage of it. The link to get tickets is in the description of the video. It's also, if you want to use the QR code here in the top corner, that will also get you to get tickets for that event. Highly recommend it. They will go quickly. So check that out. We got a super chat here from Jacoby. Says, I like the acquisition of Shaheed. Can't help but want a weapon on defense. I don't know, man. Like, you got weapons everywhere on defense. I think that's part of what's happening. Like Nicky Manwari, you're not going to say he's not a weapon. Leonard Williams is not a weapon. Devin Witherspoon is not a weapon. I think that you've got weapons everywhere. This is a bowling ball of butcher knives on defense. And yes, would it have been amazing to add a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett? Heck yeah. But I don't think this team is lacking in that regard. And, it's now up to this crew to come together and be as good as they possibly can. And honestly, for my sake, I like what they've got going there. I like the camaraderie. I like that they're all bought in. I like that these guys are sacrificing their own personal numbers in order to make sure that the team is succeeding. And I think that they're in pretty decent shape. So I like this group. All right, everybody. That will do it for this episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Make sure you give it a like and subscribe. I will see you later. Until then. Oh, Real Hawk Talk is going to be Thursday. It's going to be tomorrow at 5 o'clock with Nathan Ernst and Dana O'Gorman. So no Real Hawk Talk today. That will be tomorrow. We'll have a double pod Thursday then. All right. Until then, have a good rest of your day.